My name is Trent Sutton, and I'm a professor in fisheries in the School of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. And I'm also the chair of the undergraduate fisheries program in fisheries division. So in fisheries, when people, I can think of my own self when I first started off in this field, and I see students what they think of. You come into fisheries because you want to be outside, and you want to be out collecting fish, and you want to be out working in the ocean or in a river or in a lake and handling fish, and it's all exciting. But reality is that's very little what you do. I mean, you go out there and you collect these fish and you collect all this data and you spend a lot of time analyzing those data, and there's a reason for it. Either you're doing a research project or you're managing a fishery, and the key in the end is that you have to communicate those results. You have to communicate them both orally and you have to communicate them in writing. And if you can't do that, then all this work you put into collecting all these samples and collecting all this data and analyzing it really don't mean a whole lot if you can't communicate it. And that's both technical communication, which is what I deal with most of the time, but also it's public communication, so talking to a lay audience or writing for a lay audience, which is, when you're writing technically, it's hard to write because we use jargon and you write in a different way. When you're writing for a lay audience, whether it's a newspaper article or a magazine, totally different ball game. Some people can do it and do it really well, and some people can't do it, and some people it's a big struggle for. So we try to do that. And actually, in my fisheries management class, we do a little bit of both. And the students are usually very comfortable writing in a technical sense, because by then that class is a senior level class. They've had a number of classes prior to that where they've done that. But writing for a lay audience, which is one of the assignments they have to do, they struggle with that because they want to use all these jargon terms that we throw around all the time. And the reality is, if you communicate with the public, they often don't know that terminology. So using a word that we would know in fisheries means this, you have to use an extra 10 words to say the same thing. And what I do is I give them, so it's an exercise I use, they're called micro themes. And so these are the short writing assignments, and they're word limited, so they're 225 words. They also can't write something that's only 150 words. So the idea is to use as many words as possible to explain what you're trying to do. And so what I'll do in this particular case is I give them a scenario. It's kind of like one of these kind of Dear Abby thing. Like somebody's writing in, they have a question. So, Dear Fisheries Manager, I have this stream and I've done all these things to my stream. I took out all the wood, and I've taken out all the gravel, and I put in sand for my kids to play in, and I noticed that all my fish have gone away, and I want to restore it back to the way it was. So what I tell the students, you have to do two things in this micro theme. One, you have to tell them what they did and how that created problems, but also how to fix it. And 225 words or less. And you can't use any jargon whatsoever, and you have to write it like you're talking to one of your friends or someone in your family. So you're not talking to me as a scientist. You're not talking to me as your instructor. You're not talking to one of your classmates who knows exactly what you're talking about. You have to write this like you're talking to somebody who knows nothing at all that you're talking about. I think that's the key to it, is trying to break it down in the audience, from the perspective of the audience, who your audience is, and trying to address what their level of knowledge is ahead of time. And that's hard because, I think Alaskans have a little more knowledge of fish and wildlife than, say, non-Alaskans or someone from an urban area. So someone in Fairbanks might know more than someone in Anchorage, or someone who's from Seattle or Chicago or wherever. And then in fisheries in particular, obviously we know, or the students know, a lot more about fisheries and wildlife issues, environmental issues, than say, if you were to say poll students across campus might know that are not in a non-natural resources field. So it's hard. That's part of the struggle of sort of communicating to a non-technical audience of, okay, what do I know? How do I break that down? Who is my audience? And then delivering it in a way that they understand, which means you might have to explain a little bit more, which makes it even harder because in a word-limited assignment, you can't explain more. So that's probably the hardest micro theme they have to write. I make it the second one they have to write in the semester. So the first one was actually pretty easy for them to do, but they have a hard time with it because it's the first time they've done it. And then they get more difficult progressively, and we throw that one in there with the lay audience, and then we have some other ones that are pretty technical that require them to go do some literature reviews. and then synthesize a bunch of information. And so, like I said, they get progressively more difficult, but then the student's ability in navigating the micro theme should get better and easier over time. It's just the style that they have to present the material and changes a little bit. So it's always a little bit different, always a little bit new. Like I said, it's been a pretty positive exercise for students. They get why they do it. It's not just, here's a writing assignment, I'm going to grade you on it, and here's what you get out of it kind of thing. It's, they see, and I communicate also, you know, think about this when you have this, we have this management report in the class. So they give them a bunch of data, they analyze the data, they synthesize it, they put it in the context of the literature, and then they have to come up with a management plan for this fishery. So all the micro themes are front loaded to the early part of the semester. When you're writing your management plan and you're developing your paragraphs, think about a micro theme. Here's how I develop a topic sentence. Here's how I build that argument within that paragraph. Here's how I transition from paragraph to paragraph as they're developing this. And so the feedback has been positive. Even though it's a lot of work, they understand why they're doing it.